Hello besties! Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be doing my January wrap-up. Basically just chatting through all the books I read in January, what I thought of them, the ratings I gave them, and stuff like that. I did not do one of these wrap-up videos in December because I vlogged pretty much every book that I read last month, so the majority of my thoughts are pretty much already out there. I think there was just a couple books that didn't make it into any vlogs, so if you were curious about my thoughts on those, I always have my Goodreads linked below, and I am always updating my Goodreads in real time. I update that app like it's my job, so if you want to be friends on there, it's linked below. I also just started a new book TikTok account. Who knows what's going on with TikTok these days? But for now, I've been having a lot of fun posting like real-time updates about the books that I'm currently reading. That will also be linked down below. And with all that out of the way, let's start talking about the books I read in January. Okay. I read 13 books total, which is a little bit crazy because I said this year I was gonna slow my reading down and read less books this year, but as Emmy Rossum says, I guess I am still just a feral book reader. I read majority fantasy this month. I read 7 fantasy books, 3 romance books, and 3 mystery books. The first 2 books that I completed in January were Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms, the tandem read in the Throne of Glass series. Now, I read the majority of both of these books in December, but since I finished them in January, we'll count them towards my January reads. These are the 6th and the 7th book, I believe, in the Throne of Glass series. I ended up rating Empire of Storms 4.5, Tower of Dawn a 4. Both of these books were so good. I enjoyed Empire of Storms a little bit more than I enjoyed Tower of Dawn, but I am not a part of the Tower of Dawn haters club. Maybe I would have felt differently if I didn't read them in tandem and had to sit through this entire book before getting into Kingdom of Ash, but I really enjoyed the tandem reading experience. Didn't find this book boring or annoying, and I actually really liked following along Kale in this book. But wow, this took me a long time to get through. I feel like it took me over a month to read these, but I'm so glad I did, because after I finished these, I got to go on to potentially my favorite book I've ever read. This is Kingdom of Ash, the final book in the Throne of Glass series. She's a thick one. This was 5 stars, 1 million stars, all of the stars. Oh my gosh, I loved this book so much, and I have not stopped thinking about it since I finished it. I was so impressed by how everything came together at the end of this story. I feel like Sarah J Maas is hyped up for a reason. I feel like she is a mastermind. I loved the way everything that happened in the 7 books prior to this one happened for a reason, and it all came together and just blew my mind. Also, one of my favorite female characters ever. Like, I love her so much, I would name a child after her. Then I moved on to Powerless by Elsie. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Springs series, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think Heartless is still my favorite so far in Chestnut Springs, but I haven't finished the whole series yet. Kind of have a feeling I'm gonna love the next one, Reckless, I think it is the most. But yeah, I just eat Elsie Silver's writing up when I need a nice, easy, enjoyable romance. The Chestnut Springs series is based in a small town in Canada, and there are cowboys, there are bull riders, this is actually a hockey romance. But I never knew I would be so into the cowboy genre until I picked up this series, and now I'm obsessed with it. I guess it makes sense because I grew up riding horses. Then I read The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon. I think maybe that's how you say her name. I read this one because it was my book club's pick for the month. Unfortunately, I didn't end up getting to go to book club this month because I was sick. I did end up enjoying this book. I felt like it was a really good setup for the rest of her series. I think it's gonna be a trilogy. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars because the first half wasn't my favorite. I found it a little bit boring and kind of like she was just throwing a ton of info at us. The second half of this book, though, I found really entertaining. I think the author originally wrote this as Star Wars fan fiction, then got traditionally published and had to like change a lot of things for copyright reasons. But I can tell this would have been so good on AO3 or whatever it's called. It was pretty funny though. There was a lot of little things that I noticed were just taken directly from Star Wars, but that didn't get in the way of my enjoyment of the book. First part kind of felt like you were just getting all the lore spelled out for you. Second half, we got this like enemies to lovers romance, very slow burn, and very much enemies. But with all that being said, I do think I'll continue this series because I feel like it is set up for a really good second book. Remember how I was talking about how much I love cowboy romances now? Then I read Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage, and I liked this book way more than I thought I was going to. I honestly just read it because I wanted to get to the next book in the series, Lost and Lassoed, because I heard a lot of good things about that one that made me think I would really like it. But I was like, I have to read Swift and Saddled first before I can go on to the next in the series. And I felt like I kind of heard people say this was their least favorite in the series. But I think I like this one better than I liked Done and Dusted. I related a lot to the male main character in this, Wes, and found myself like highlighting several things that he said, which I wasn't expecting to highlight anything in this little romance book, but I did. My one gripe with this book though was that he kept calling Ada, the main character, sweetheart, over and over again. And I was like, can we use a different name, please? But yeah, we meet Wes, the male main character, in the first book. He's the brother of our main character in the first book. He is working on this project to turn their guest house into kind of like an Airbnb and rent it out as kind of like a country getaway to people. And Ada is an interior designer who is hired to come work on this project. So that's how they meet, and they feel like they shouldn't be together because they're working together and she's just in town for this project. But, you know, obviously they fall for each other, yada, yada, yada. I thought it was really good, especially for being just like a little easy read. Okay, then I read my very first arc. So thank you so much to Marcelina for reaching out to me to send me your book. Her book is called The Blood That Divides Us, and it's a murder mystery set in high school, kind of gives Good Girl's Guide to Murder vibes. I haven't read Binding 13, but I've seen people say it gives Binding 13 vibes, which those aspects were pretty intense. So definitely read trigger warnings before going into this book. However, I am really impressed by the author's talent as a teenage author and will definitely keep an eye out. She continues to publish more and more books. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Okay, then to prepare for the release of Onyx Storm, it finally came time for me to read Iron Flame. In 2024, I tried reading Iron Flame, but just like could not get myself to stick to it for whatever reason. So I thought this year I'll download the audiobook and see if that will kind of help me get through the whole story. And luckily it did. I'm so glad I downloaded the audiobook because I really enjoyed consuming the book in that way. There were things I liked about this book, things I didn't like. Overall, it was fine. I give it 3.5 stars. I love this world. I love all the dragons so much. I found Violet and Xaden both to be a bit annoying in this book, but I'm so glad that I finished it because you guys will see in a few books I ended up really loving Onyx Storm. So I finished Iron Flame and I was anticipating going right into Onyx Storm, but I ended up finishing it a few days before Onyx Storm came out, and I like really didn't know what I should start. So I made a TikTok asking for suggestions, and a few people were like, don't read another fantasy book, just read something simple and easy. So I took that advice and I'm really glad I did. I ended up finishing the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 3rd book in the series, All In, and this is the 4th book in the series, Bad Blood. I gave both of these books 4 stars, and I'm honestly like a little bit sad to be done with this series. I enjoyed it so much. This series follows this group of teenagers who are in this program called the Naturals program, which is basically something set up by the FBI in order to hone the natural abilities of this group of teenagers. They all have something they're particularly good at. Sloane is really good at statistics and probabilities. Leah can detect lies and lie really well. And girl Cassie is really good at like reading people's emotions and intentions and motivations. Why don't I remember what Dean and Michael do? Anyways, you guys get the vibes. All these teenagers have these abilities because of the experiences and traumas they have had in their lives. So as we watch them uncover cold cases, we also kind of get to learn a bit about them. And as the series go on, the cold cases and the open cases end up having to do a lot more with their lives than we originally anticipated. And All In, we get to learn a bit more about the character Sloane, and I really enjoyed getting her backstory and learning more about her. And then Bad Blood is our finale for the whole series, so we circle back to the main mystery that surrounds Cassie, our main character's life. And I really like how Jennifer Lynn Barnes tied everything together, but I do need all of these characters in immediate intensive therapy to work through what they just went through. Then we obviously moved on to Onyx Storm. I have a whole reading vlog reading this video up, so if you want to watch it, I'll link it in the description. But I'm so happy I ended up enjoying this book. I was scared after Iron Flame, I'm not gonna lie. I ended up giving Onyx Storm a 4.25 rating. Is this the most like amazingly written book ever? No. But did I really enjoy the plot, the romance, the dragons, and the little bits of humor sprinkled in? Yes, I really did. So yeah, I will definitely be continuing the Empyrean series whenever our next book comes out. After that, I needed something light because Onyx Storm ended crazy. And I've been meaning to read this book because it's the only book on Allie Hazelwood's backlist that I hadn't gotten to yet. This is Love on the Brain. In classic Allie Hazelwood fashion, this follows a girl in STEM. Her name is Bee, and she is a neuroscientist. She goes to Texas to go to the NASA headquarters to work on these new astronaut helmets. When she gets there, she realizes that like her nemesis from school is also working on this project. Come to find out, she has misinterpreted a lot and is kind of been obsessed with her all along, which is a trope that I really enjoy personally. But yeah, this was a fun, cute time. All of Allie Hazelwood's characters are a little bit silly. Bee did wear galaxy print leggings at one point in this book, but I looked past that. The ending was also like a little bit crazy. I'm not sure how much sense it really made for the story, but overall it was fun, fast-paced, did what I needed to do, so I gave this one 3 stars. Okay, last book of January. I am actually still reading this one. This is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I wanted to include it in this video because I'm sure I'm gonna finish it in the next couple of days before January is over, because it's pretty short and sweet. I actually got the audiobook on Libby for this one, and I am loving the audiobook. I think it's narrated by the same woman who narrated the Emily Wilde audiobooks, and I really love listening to her voice. I don't know if it's just because the voice is the same or if there really is like a super similar vibe to the stories, but this book is really reminding me of Emily Wilde. Our main character, Dora, has a lot of similar characteristics to Emily. Basically, when Dora was younger, an elf came and snatched half of her soul. He was trying to snatch her whole soul because Dora's mother apparently promised him the soul of her firstborn child. I haven't completely uncovered that mystery yet, but ever since she had half of her soul taken, Dora does not experience emotions and feelings the way that other people do. She doesn't really experience embarrassment, and she really doesn't have any filter, which is just so funny to read about because if she's thinking something, she'll say it. It leads to a lot of like awkward but sweet moments. But yeah, don't have a rating on that one yet. When I'm editing this, I'll probably have finished it, so this is why I ended up rating it. All right, those are the 13 books I read in January. Comment down below what your favorite book that you read in January was. I would love to know because I'm always looking for new recs. And hopefully I will see you guys next week. Bye. Oh my gosh, this is quite heavy.